Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. A woman who led a drugs courier operation and was previously known in her last operation as The Boss has now been sentenced again after police found intelligence that she was transporting over £100,000 worth of heroin and crack cocaine into towns that were in and around Gloucestershire. Miss Sophie Thompson, who was 24 and from Birmingham, had sold the Class A drugs in Stroud, Cirencester, Gloucester and Cheltenham to local dealers in an attempt to pay off her £10,000 drug debt, the court was told. Her driver for the operation was Mr. Blessing Choto, who at the time was 25, and denied any knowledge of Miss Thompson drug dealing anything, something which had caused laughter in the court. Mr. Choto said he thought Miss Thompson was a nurse who was on call and had to be driven around. Gloucester Crown Court heard that the police had stopped the Mercedes that was travelling south on the M5 on the 8th of December last year. The car was stopped after the police received information that it had been used in the distribution of Class A drugs. The police believed that the drugs were being supplied from the Birmingham area. The prosecutor for the case, Charles Rowe, said the driver for this deal was the defendant, Mr. Blessing Choto, who is 25. His passenger was Sophie Thompson, who is 24. The police noticed that her jeans were undone when the car was pulled over, and that her flies were down on her jeans. She told the officers that her jeans were undone because she felt bloated at the time and felt very uncomfortable. Both Mr. Choto and Miss Thompson were arrested immediately and both taken into custody, where upon arrival they were strip searched. During the strip search, the female officers found that Miss Thompson did in fact have a substantial amount of drugs on her. Miss Thompson had individual wraps of many varying different weights of drugs in her possession. These wraps included heroin with, in accordance to police intelligence, a street value of £4,480 and a wholesale value being of around £2,900. The cocaine she had in her possession was valued at £2,130 and a wholesale value of £1,500. Telephone data showed that Miss Thompson had regularly travelled between Birmingham and Gloucestershire since November 2020, bringing in over £100,000 worth of heroin and crack cocaine into the county for at least that 2-month period, said Mr. Rowe. Miss Thompson had established herself as a trusted drug runner for a criminal organisation, and Miss Thompson was provided with a substantial amount of drugs to be able to cover her clientele who came from Stroud, Cirencester, Gloucester and Cheltenham. Miss Thompson was set up with luxury transport, provided Class A drugs, and was operating her drugs network via many different social media outlets, updating which drugs she would be supplying next to the localised dealers. Miss Thompson paid her driver, Mr. Choto, £120 for each trip. On her arrest, Miss Thompson had explained that she needed the money to pay off her own drugs debt, which she had built up with a criminal gang. In Miss Thompson's police interview, she explained that she still owed drug dealers £10,000 from the last time she was arrested, and was subsequently jailed in 2018. Miss Thompson explained to officers that she was attempting to pay off this debt at a cost of £100 per day. Mr. Choto's involvement in the drugs gang was very limited, as he was only involved with Miss Thompson for the day he was booked. Judge Ian Laurie QC interjected, "I remember Mr. Choto's trial evidence. He said he believed that Miss Thompson was a nurse who needed to be driven around. It was at this point that Miss Thompson burst out laughing from the dock, saying that this was the first time she had heard this evidence." Judge Laurie also remarked, "Yes, we thought this evidence was funny too, as did the jury when they convicted him." Mr. Stephen Young, defending Mr. Choto, said that the £37,000 Mercedes car that Mr. Choto was driving was in fact a lease vehicle which he had used for his work in IT and also for being a delivery driver. He has been extremely consistent with the evidence that he gave at trial. He was only driving for Miss Thompson for 2 days, said Mr. Young. He has 2 jobs and he comes from a very respectable background. It appears that the drug dealer needed transport and Mr. Choto's name was put forward. The jury did not believe that Mr. Choto did not know what was going on. He said he didn't have any drug debts or any drug addiction. However, he was stupid enough to take the driving job for £120 a day from Birmingham to Gloucester, and for such little reward. Lloyd Jenkins, defending Miss Thompson, said, Her actions were carried out in desperation, as a means as an end to pay back her £10,000 drug debt. She also admits that she committed this offence of drug dealing while she was on parole for a similar offence. Ms Thompson has shown significant remorse, especially since she has written to the court. She has not played the game and has admitted her involvement from the very outset. Ms Thompson is the mother of a young child who has not seen her child for some time. She explains that she has no intention of getting back involved with drugs again, after her previous conviction ended up with her spending time in custody. However, when she was released, she said the heavies came in and put pressure on her. Ms Thompson, who was of Shenstone Road, Birmingham, pleaded guilty to 4 charges of being concerned with the intent to supply Class A drugs, crack cocaine and heroin between November the 1st, 2020 and December the 8th, 2020. On one of these occasions, the drug dealer threw out £10,000 worth of heroin and crack cocaine out the window of his car during a police chase through Worcester, which only ended when the driver lost control of his vehicle and crashed. Sophie Thompson, Devinder Rana and Tariq Stevens all admitted possession of heroin and crack cocaine with intent to supply at Worcester Crown Court. Mr Stevens also admitted dangerous driving with a possession of a Class C drug. During the chase, the dealers discarded 48 grams of heroin with a street value of £4,800 and 52 grams of crack cocaine with a street value of £5,500, throwing the package out the car window as they sped along Ombersley Road in Worcester. Christopher Lester, prosecuting at the time, said, "The police received reports on April the 25th about suspicious activity involving a Nissan hire car. Police formed the view that those inside the car were involved with drug dealing in and around Worcester. The following day, officers in a marked car spotted the same Nissan on Tulladine Road in Worcester at around 12:10 p.m. Almost immediately, the occupants noticed the marked car and effectively fled. A chase began," said Mr Lester. The police activated their blue lights and sirens as Mr Stevens speeded through residential streets, heading up along Windermere Drive, into Caron Drive and onto Cotswold Way, on and towards Blackpool. From there, Mr Stevens drove the passenger, Miss Thompson and Mr Rana onto the A38 on Droitwich Road before turning onto the A449 on Ombersley Road, where a package containing drugs was thrown out at the passenger side car of the window. The Nissan continued on the A449, going the wrong way around the roundabout and up towards junction 6 of the M5, where Mr Stevens lost control of the car and crashed. Miss Thompson was found with £187 and a mobile phone with relevant texts about drug dealing. Mr Stevens was found with £193 and a crack pipe. Mr Rana was found with £165. All 3 were arrested and taken to Worcester Police Station. Mr Stevens and Miss Thompson gave no comment during their interviews, and instead released prepared statements. Mr Rana said he had been in Malvern all day when a car had stopped and picked him up, claiming he knew nothing about any drug dealing. Texts on Miss Thompson's phone showed that she was the manager or boss of the operation. Mr Stevens was the driver and Mr Rana was the plugger or muscle. She also messaged her boyfriend about staying in Worcester in a hotel for the night, and there was also a reference to doing good trade in the city, as she told him, "You ain't reaching our level, tell me I ain't killing it," and that she was making a mil, a slang for making £1 million. Mr Rana's mobile phone contained postcodes for Birmingham and Worcester, which Mr Lester said was indicative of locations for drug dealing. The package of drugs that was recovered by police and analysed showed that the heroin was between 70 and 73% pure, and the crack cocaine was as high as 91% pure. Of the individual crack packages, 20 were at 80% purity, and the remaining 80 were at 88 to 91% purity. Mr Stevens, aged 39, of Wethern Road, Birmingham, had previous convictions for robbery, assault and causing actually bodily harm, assaulting a police constable and threatening behaviour. Mr Stevens was also subject to a 4-week prison sentence, suspended for 12 months at the time of the drugs offence. Mr Rana, aged 22, of Wethern Road, Birmingham, has 2 previous convictions for dealing crack cocaine, and was now a 3rd striker, meaning that he was now eligible for a minimum 7-year sentence. Miss Thompson, who was 22 at the time of this offence and at no fixed abode, had a previous conviction of theft and a burglary dwelling. Jason Patel, who was defending for Miss Thompson, said that his client had been dealing with her own long-term cocaine addictions and herself had many issues, and argued that some of the text messages were clearly, in essence, just bravado. He said that during her first period of incarceration, she had completed qualifications in English and maths, computing and anger management. Mr. Patel said she was now clean of her addiction and was only dealing, in essence, to clean her drug debt with a particular individual. Gary Harper for Mr. Rana said he became homeless in February this year and fell back into bad habits being around people who sold drugs. He has made some very ill-advised life choices. Judge Nicholas Cartwright said, "The fact that all 3 of you are from the Birmingham area, had travelled down to Worcester with this quantity of drugs in a hired car, and the fact that there is also other evidence of cash and messages, indicates to the court that all 3 of you were in a joint enterprise to create a cross-country line and were willing to cross county boundaries in order to come to Worcester to supply a significant quantity of Class A drugs." He jailed Mr. Rana for 5 years 8 months. He jailed Miss Thompson for 45 months. However, the court was told that Mr. Stevens had refused to get on the bus from HMP Hull for sentencing, and so his sentencing will take place at a later date. A proceeds of crime timetable was also drawn up and was to be looked over at a later date. Miss Thompson served half her time and was released from custody, but had, however, managed to find herself back in the depths of the drug game again. Mr. Choto of Turf Pits Lane, Sutton Coldfield, who was driving Miss Thompson during her drugs operation, was found guilty after a trial was held. Mr. Choto was found guilty of being concerned with the supply of Class A drugs, diamorphine and crack cocaine between December the 6th and December the 8th, 2020. Judge Laurie said to Mr. Choto, "You have brought enormous shame on your family. You are a man who is clearly capable of working very hard. You are effectively so embarrassed by all of this that it seems that you have difficulty in confronting your actions. I can't emphasize enough, for somebody so bright as you are, how stupid you've been. Not just stupid that you've betrayed the trust of others and began to indulge in drug dealing. I suspect that you knew much more than you were letting on. I don't know what has driven you to make such a ridiculous decision, but a ridiculous decision is one you have most certainly made." The judge then sentenced Mr. Choto to a 3-year community order that includes learning life lessons as part of his 10 steps to rehabilitation, activity requirement sessions, and also ordered to complete 200 hours of unpaid work. Mr. Choto was also at this point ordered to pay £1,000 towards court costs and a victim surcharge of £95. Judge Laurie said to Miss Thompson, "You deserve to be punished for a variety of offences, but I have taken into account your mitigation, and I hope you understand that you're still going to have a prison sentence. You are a drug user yourself, and you will know that the drugs you sold will cause misery to others and their families. Please take this time to look at yourself and look how much it has wrecked your life. You've been sentenced for similar offences before. Your letters that you submitted clearly contain details of your suffering, which in itself explains your vulnerability. You need to ensure that you are not exposed to the danger of these so-called heavies that you speak of knocking on your door in the future. It appears that once you were in the company of police, following your arrest, you were able to reveal the true extent to your operation." The judge sentenced Miss Thompson to a prison term of 3 years and ordered her to pay a victim surcharge of £190. Thank you for joining us today. What's your opinion on Miss Thompson's sentence? Do you think it was too harsh, or do you think it was not harsh enough? Please let us know in the comments below. And as always, stay safe.